Beautiful people, welcome back. People and spirituality. Let me tell you something about people and spirituality. The specific subject matter today is about what people refer to as witches. Witches. When people hear the word witches, either if they are religious on a mundane level or religious on a different hierarchy. A different hierarchy meaning they hold on to a religious book and they do intertwine their spirituality with that religion rather than isolating their powers to something or someone outside of themselves as the source to which everything else looks back at before it responds. Whether that man or woman is religious on a mundane level or on a different hierarchy, or whether that man or woman does not ascribe to any religion but use the strict spiritual correlation outside of religion or comprehends the spirituality involved in religion, acknowledges the power in there, but still does not confine themselves to any limited religion. Or whether someone says they're not religious at all and they don't believe things of spiritual nature exist. Or whether someone says they're spiritual and because of that they throw to the side religion and shuts down religion, whatever degree, level of comprehension or competency one acquires. When the real situation comes down and you start dealing with matters regarding things like witches, and I'm not speaking of it from a fanatical perspective of putting on some dress and drawing some seals, 5-pointed star circle. I'm not speaking about child's play. I'm not speaking about dabbling in it. We're talking about the real thing. When it comes about the matter of witches, knowledge is what causes people to be afraid when they hear that word, witch or witches. Knowledge, no matter how small, is also what causes people to loosely refer to themselves as witches without really comprehending the details of it. See, each and every one of us, you listening to my words right now, whether you're a man or a woman, because keep in mind, witches is just the feminine aspect. They're wizards and warlocks also, just as it exists in women. Be certain and have no doubt that it also exists in men. When it comes to this subject matter, but let's just isolate the specific term of the subject matter to just witches, because it's the most popular and it's the easiest that most people can relate to. And it's the trending term that a lot of people hang on to. So for the sake of the neural pathways of the mind being able to correlate information, we'll stick to the word witch or witches. But just know that it applies to both masculine and feminine. What puts fear in people's minds, what puts people in a state of apprehension, or what makes people feel like they can refer to themselves as a witch is knowledge. And specific to the Yoruba culture, there are three main categories. It's white witch or white warlocks, black witches or black warlocks, red witches or red warlock. Knowledge, or lack thereof, again, is what causes apprehension in people. And here's a little bit of information. It's not a secret. Remember, secrets do not exist. The only thing that gives people the closest perception that a secret could exist is if they've been misinformed or if information has been deliberately isolated from them. But information, nonetheless, is your birthright, just as it is to those who wield that information while you're isolated from it. So nothing spoken of here is secretive. And although it's not secretive, do not take it lightly. Do not perceive it from a fanatical perspective. Do not accept it arbitrarily. Think about it. Cross-reference this. The good part about this is it innately exists in you and I, regardless of whether we bring it to the forefront of our conscious mind or not. But I nonetheless implore you to think about it. Pause this video, think about what is being said, and cross-reference it with common sense. The thing about witches and wizards is, first, all of us are witches and wizards. The category to which we belong to are the only difference. I'll reiterate that once more. All of us, you and I, you listening to me right now, you are a witch and you're a wizard. All of us are witches and wizards, one way or another. Do not let anyone lie to you to tell you that only isolated group of some people somewhere or some women somewhere are only witches, and that you must submit your power to them or worship them or give them some sacrifice. The only sacrifice you need is to your own divine head, which is Ori, which we've mentioned earlier. And by virtue of that, you're automatically appealing the divine creator, because the divine creator is the one who created your Ori. The Ori is your algorithm of who you are, what you are, how you be it. There are deeper details to that Ori, given the fact that each and every man, even if there's 8 billion of us on Earth or whatever increment they say we're on Earth, each and every one of us have specific algorithm of Ori we're coming, which is a specific type of Ori that aligns with our destiny. That's another thing. But nonetheless, sacrifices are not to be given to anyone else but your own Ori first. There's a phrase in Yoruba that says Kori in Yogbabodi. Kori in Yogbabodi simply means whenever your own divine head, your own divinity, has turned its back against your fears of this physical dense world, only then would you be required to go appeal to some people who will subjugate you spiritually. And even then, if that's the case, should that not tell you that your own divine self is what you need to appeal to? See, the issue, we're still speaking on the matter of witches here now. See, the issue with most people when it comes to spirituality, whether they innately realize it or not, is most people, about 6 out of 10 human beings that you will walk around every day, that you will hear, that you will interface with, 6 out of 10 of them are in fact energy vampires. Of those 6 out of 10 people, half of them know that they're energy vampires, the other half don't know. You see, whether they know that they're energy vampires or not is actually a natural thing, because humans are walking power plants. Humans are spiritual walking power plants. At any given moment, anyone can siphon life force from others. Now, it's not necessarily a bad thing. The mere fact that you will listen to someone and understand what they're saying, comprehend it, be one with it, be savvy with it, and actually have a deeper or broader or farther perspective of reality, merely by listening to someone, is you absorbing energy from that man or woman. And half of those 6 out of 10 people you meet are like that, meaning they're good-hearted. They're just seeking energy the way they know how to. The other half out of those 6 out of 10 deliberately seek energy to take from people to deplete other humans. 6 out of 10 people you see that wears religious, spiritual regalia, that greets people Hotep, Aburu Aboyi, and says Ashe or Ashe, whatever it is they pronounce it, even though that's not invoking any power in any way. Whoever it is that says they've adopted some African spirituality, or say they're doing fruit fast or water fast. Again, in the note of fasting, what you eat and what you don't put in your body when it comes to physical matter has nothing to do with your spiritual abilities. It would assist you, but the extent that another man has to go through to get to a certain spiritual point is different from another man, because all men are not made equal. One man might have to fast for 7 days in a row to be able to get some spiritual enlightenment and to open their, quote, third eye, whereas another man can eat chicken all day long and be able to do that same thing in a blink of an eye. Now imagine if they fast, imagine how much more amplified they would be. So don't get it twisted. Fasting does not make you spiritual. Fasting accounts for a very small aspect of it. Although on a spiritual level, if you want to protect yourself spiritually, fasting will help, because there are many means to which what you put in that dragon inside of you called the intestines. That itself can be used as an access to you to reach you on a spiritual attack level for someone who really wants to harm you, just merely by the fact that you're eating. Not poisoning your food, but just the fact that you're consuming food and have physical matter in you. But that's another subject matter. But nonetheless, half of those 6 out of 10 people that are energy vampires, those people will look spiritually right, they will talk spiritually good, they will act like they want to help you. Yoruba people call those amanishin, meaning they know you, they smile in front of you, but they're the ones causing the lower vibratory things, the demise, the malefic things, the misfortune in your life. Those energy vampires. And in the note of witches, what makes us witch, or what makes us wizards, is the intent and purity of our heart. Hence, white witches. When they talk about someone being a white witch or white wizard or white warlock, it does not mean that when it comes time to go, it does not mean they will not bring the world down on you. They will. But the criteria as to how and why they will do it, the extent they will be willing to give you an opportunity to fix your fuckery, is a little bit different compared to a black witch. Black witches fall perfectly under the category of half of those 6 out of 10 people who seeks energy out of people. Black and red witches are pure energy vampires. Doesn't mean they're bad, doesn't mean they're good. It simply means that they, of all people, comprehend that humans are walking power plant, and they can simply tap into other people's life force at will, simply using the similitude of reality. So long as you step on sand on this earth, so long as you're made of mud, so long as you have water inside of you, so long as you breathe water that exists in the air, so long as your body generates heat, even if your body does not generate heat, meaning someone is dead, so long as you are connected to what most people call the Akashic record, you are a walking power plant. And since energy cannot be created or destroyed, anyone can access that, because no matter how far-fetched you think someone is removed from you or separated from you in consciousness, meaning they're lower than you or better than you, or you look up to them or you look down to them, or you think they're physically located in another part of the world, they can still touch you without touching you. You can still be touched without being physically touched. And black and red witches know this, and they do it however they want, whenever they want. But see, the caveat to that as to why they do it however they want and whenever they want is because they naturally lack that good fortune. Your capacity to be a white, red, or black witch can be based on your genetics also, meaning it can run in your family. But every now and then there will be exceptions, because nature has a perfected checks and balance system where even if red witches or red wizards run in your family, maybe after every 6 generations, a generation is an average of 25 years. So you're looking at around 150 years. A white witch will be born within that red or black witch family, just to tip the balance of the scale. And guess what happens? Those type of white witches that come out of red and black witch families are usually the strongest type of white witches, because those red and black witches will see the light in that child, and they will do everything to destroy it. And most of those type of white witch children who are born out of red and black witch families, genetic disposition, just as much as a child will be born of a man and woman and will look like them, that physical similitude or semblance of a parent exists on a spiritual level also, whereby your spiritual attributes can be adopted or passed down through your mom or your father. But nature will not allow everything to be fixed. Diversity and change is the constant attribute, as we all know, or at least we ought to know. And because of that, every now and then within the lineage of a white witch, a black or red witch will pop up. Within the lineage of a black or red witch, a white witch or wizard will pop up. When it comes to a white witch popping up in a red or black witch family, what usually happens is they will try to kill that white witch child. If they don't do it physically, what they will do is they will torment that child's life. It is possible to take a person's glory. If you've yet to figure that out now, and you dealing or dabbling in spirituality. Some people might not even know this. If not, then it's fine. You just keep doing your thing. Don't worry about it. But nonetheless, people can take your glory from your childhood. See that thing called the placenta? These are so-called secrets that wise men and wise women of, quote, African spirituality know. So when people in the Western world, my brothers and sisters here that I love so much, when you guys adopt African spirituality, it makes me cringe a little bit because there's a lot of dangers that you're stepping into that you're not aware of. I'm telling you this so that you'll be aware of it, because only when you know better can you do better. For instance, that thing called placenta, Yoruba people call it ibioma. See, that placenta is a corresponding existence of that child. What you do with it is very important. Besides the fact that it carries a lot of base cells that can be used to create other types of organs and cells. Which, by the way, if someone wants to become spiritually, wants to do some type of spiritual ritual to get wealthy, one of the things that we use is a child's placenta. Because everything in a child's body, in a human body, is perfect as a tool to be used to bring down good fortune. Because energy cannot be created or destroyed, and a child's energy is the purest. The child's body has not been filled with physical matter of food, thought forms, conditioning, that will bastardize its ability to tap quicker and more efficiently to the source of good fortune compared to an adult or a teenager. See, that thing called a child's placenta, after you give birth to that child, there's some very specific things you have to do with it that if you don't do it, that child will be vulnerable throughout their lives to spiritual attacks. We'll say that and we'll leave it at that. If that child is not vulnerable to spiritual attacks, that child will be going to and fro from earth seeking a home, seeking love, seeking acknowledgement, but will never find it. And even if they do find it, they will always abandon the self-sabotage. Most of the issues most people deal with in today's world is beyond what meets the eyes. Ask yourself, what did your parents do with your placenta after giving birth to you? Do you know? When people speak of home births, when Africans speak of home births, these are part of the intricacies they know about and things that they do with these other particles that come out of the woman that's attached to the child. This is part of the reason why they don't go to hospitals unless it's absolutely needed, where the physical body has to be torn open. That's presuming they don't have someone around the village that can actually do that. But in today's world, even so-called Africans are running away from their culture because the virus of the Western world is spreading so great. And those people who are colonizing those other parts of the world are using the so-called guise of, quote, American culture and westernization to steal other people's culture and bastardize it and have them run away from their culture, which has the true power, and substitute it for something that's detrimental. But nonetheless, going back to the note of witches, black and red witches usually don't come into this world with good fortune. That's the reason why they're energy vampires. And because they naturally don't come into this world with a greater level of fortune, because remember, all men are not created equal. They are granted a little bit special ability to be able to tap into people a little bit more, because that's how nature counterbalances things. It's neither good or bad. It's just balance of nature. And what delineates a red, black, or white witch is your heart, your intent. How predisposed are you to thinking of harming someone? But then there are certain types of people whereby they get angry very easily, but their spirits, their spiritual nature, and their guardian angel are white in nature. And by virtue of that, they begin to do contrary things. They plot against people to harm them, to do revenge, etc., etc. And that by itself is contradictory to their own divine nature, whereby they're supposed to, in the Western world, they call it healing and all that stuff. See, healing work is not synonymous to being a victim and being vulnerable. Healing work is as simple as telling the truth and leaving it be. When people come to you for assistance, give it to them and leave it be. And then do your own work to work on yourself. There are many people who go into Yoruba spirituality or any type of other types of African spirituality, and they get introduced to certain spiritual tools and consecration, like you see Harry Potter. They're the wands, right? You see, they have staffs, they have crystal balls, all that, right? See, people at West African have stuff like that too. But if you don't know that there are different categories to those spiritual tools, and you carry a spiritual tool that does not belong to your own natural spirit, it will draw in negative energy. But what you have to comprehend is, just as much as an electrician works behind or in between walls to set up the electric before the switches can be flipped, that electrician is concentrating that energy around that room so that that switch can be flipped to generate the energy which reflect as light in a room, or to generate the energy which electrical things can be attached to give it life. Same applies to spiritual tools. Each and every spiritual tool that exists on earth, whether it's dug underneath the ground. See, most of these temples, African temple people go to, there are things buried underneath those temples that the moment you step into it, it's altering something about your fortune, whether you realize it or not. And churches and mosques do this also. I don't know of the Western world, but I'm sure they probably do it. But in West Africa, that exists in abundance. So now you go to some Babalawo and they give you some type of spiritual tool, right? They say do this and do that. Do you know how that thing was consecrated? Do you know what type of power it's using? A white witch uses the same foundational principle of spirituality as the black and red. The only difference is the intent and the manner of conjuration. The manner of conjuration for a black and a red witch is to use other human beings as the source of their power by taking from people. The source of power of a white witch is to take from a higher source directly rather than indirectly, because they have that ability to tap into it. You put two and two together as to which one is stronger or not. But the ones that are quick to get to you and put fear in you are the black and red. And usually those are the ones that will appear very nice and friendly to you. Those are the energy vampires. What makes you a white, red, or black witch is how you use energy. If you've ever watched any movie about some type of chosen child whereby the wise men and wise women come around and they put different objects and wait for that child to go to a specific object to determine whether, okay, for instance, the Dalai Lama, which is a spiritual leader in Tibet, one of the ways they determine whether the child born after looking at the stars and the divination and the natural cycles that certain spirits come and visit Earth to come do their job. After that, they put certain objects, which sits in three separate categories. See, spirituality and magic work in the world is the same thing. They put a specific consecrated object consecrated to a white path, another one consecrated to a black path, another one consecrated to a red path. Whichever one that child goes to, it's the type of spirit that child has. The same thing is done in West Africa. Whenever a child is ordained, a lot of people think ordained has to be about minister religious stuff. Since you're a child, if you're not ordained as a child, something is going on. This is the importance of culture. It will make the life path much easier. No one is perfect, and everyone will stumble, especially if your heart is pure, because you will be more open to influences because you would always have a good heart. But it's through that also is how you reveal your power. Black and red witches are quicker to realize what their powers are. White witches are late bloomers, unless the family groomed you for it. But if your family did not groom you for it, if you were born in a part of the world where certain culture don't exist, chances are you will have more population of red and black witches thriving compared to white ones. And if you're a white witch or a white wizard, those energy vampires will come for you, because your light does in fact shine. But nonetheless, when it comes to the concept of witches in Yoruba spirituality, the symbolism for it are birds. And the sole reason why the symbol for witches and wizards are birds is because birds are creatures that surf the air, which signifies ether which signifies pure raw electromagnetic field, which is the medium to which someone can touch you without physically touching you. Yet, birds also have the ability to land on a hard surface, aka the earth, meaning as above, so below. Birds can dominate the skies as much as they have the ability to come on land. Birds can traverse the sky as much as they have the ability to traverse the ground. And within most staffs, spiritual staffs that you see, they will show you two main symbolism of birds. It can be a dove, it can be a hawk, it can be an eagle, it can be a chicken, whatever type of bird. One that appears airborne, like you see in this image, and one that's in the ground. This is no different than this symbol. Man pointing to the earth and also pointing to the sky. In this case, the symbolism used is the airborne creature of a bird, one in the sky and one directly tilting its head to the ground. This is no different than this hex alpha, above and below. This is no different than this symbolism of Aristotle, pointing one finger to the sky and another the ground. See, when people look into the Hermetic principles of correspondence, by the way, the 7 main Hermetic principles that exist in the public are just public ones. There are a total of 12 Hermetic principles, and the other 5 are located in the Nag Hammadi library, NAG space HAMADI library. The one that people see in the Kabbalion, the 7 ones, those are just one for the public. When you begin to read the 5 other Hermetic principles, what you're dealing into is pure witchcraft, voodoo, hoodoo, whatever you want to call it. You're Sufism, you're dabbling straight deep into it. The first 7 is just an introduction that you must bear in mind as you deal with the other 5. And the reason why the other 5 are redacted from the public is because they are in fact sacred. But nonetheless, this also lets you know that man is the Lord of the land. Because man has the power to control the ethers, which signifies this bird that's supposed to be airborne on the staff controlled, the mantle. And also the same airborne creature bowing to the man, which symbolizes the earth. When it comes to the note of witches, the symbolism that you're looking at is what any type of witch bears, whether you're white, black, or red. And as mentioned earlier, all of us are witches, wizards, and warlocks. It's just a matter of time until you realize how to use your ability. And more importantly, what type of witch you are. Whether you're black or red does not make you a bad human being. Whether you're white does not mean you're the perfected creature. But nonetheless, while nature does not discern between good or bad, it still takes sides. In other words, what I'm saying is, if you go out ass naked on a day that's -9 degrees, nature's not going to say, oh, well, I'm going to spare you because I don't want you to lose your life. You will freeze to death. So be realistic with yourself about what you are and use discernment. Are there ways you can find that out? Yes, there are. You can do it through divination, but think about it to yourself and you know what type you are. You know. No one else has to tell you. Every time you see this word witchcraft and witches, it's nothing spooky or speculative. It's just the nature of men. And one's extent of being able to use the nature of men. Do you know what nature of men is? When I say men, I'm referring to both man and woman. Nature of men is spiritual. Your ability to use your own spiritual inclination beyond just merely talking about some spiritual concept or some motivational speech about spirituality. Your ability to function with it. Your ability to be competent based on knowledge of how it works. Because even if you know something intrinsically, education is still important. And in order for education to be ingrained in the mind, introduction has to first exist. Otherwise, you'll be led astray. Most people who go into African spirituality don't get these basic introduction into it. And thus they get taken advantage of. They get some so-called babalawo scamming them. You see, some West Africans are so brutal with their spiritual nature that, and I'm not speaking bad about West Africans. I'm telling you this because this is the reality of things. This is what I see. This is what I have family members that I know that can do crap like this to people. Some West Africans are so brutal that there are certain things, certain spiritual tools that you can put on the tip of your tongue. And when you speak with someone, they will do as you wish. The juju really goes that deep, and it's real. I'm doing these series of video when it comes to West African spirituality or anything regarding arts and craft to let people know that most spiritual things people chase after, believe it or not, you can actually do it yourself. And when I say do it yourself, I'm not just talking about speculation of talking about spirituality or having a conversation about it. Everything we're speaking about thus far in other videos of this barely scratched the surface of introduction, but is nonetheless necessary so you get it. Everything that's being spoken of here is not to convert you to anything. I couldn't care any less what you say you are, because even I know that there exists power in any given religion. Just because one claims a religion doesn't mean they know the power in it. Whereas another man cannot claim a religion but still have access to the power within it. Because all culture and spirituality are one. So when you see this word witchcraft, don't be spooked out by it. It's what you are. In Yoruba, witches are generally referred to as Yamiaje. See, Aje just means a witch. Ya means mother. Mi means my. The witch who is my mother. And this witch who is my mother refers to people in the spiritual realm that have clairvoyant abilities beyond the mundane man and woman. Although the mundane man and woman also has that ability, but they've not cultivated it. It sickens me when I hear people speak of spirituality, but just limited to just feelings and some motivational talk. I'm telling you, spirituality goes far deeper than that. Far deeper. Far, far deeper. Yamiaje is a Yoruba term of respect and endearment used to describe a woman of African ancestry who is considered to be an Aje. In other words, whatever connotation you've heard about witches, it's not a bad thing. I repeat, whatever connotation about witches that anyone have heard of, or at least to the Yoruba people, is not a bad thing. Only illiteracy and lack of knowledge of culture and spirituality will cause someone to misinterpret something that's naturally pure as being bad. Yamiade is a Yoruba term of respect and endearment. When you have endearment towards someone, it means you adore them, you respect them, you will care for them, you will nurture them, you would protect them. When you respect someone, you see them from a different light of not being ordinary. You're willing to go to an extent to do something for them. But see, there's a downside to this also. This interpretation of respect and endearment have gotten a lot of people twisted. And we'll go over that. Yamiaje is a Yoruba term of respect and endearment used to describe a woman of African ancestry who is considered to be an Aje, aka the witch. The woman who wields the red, arcane, creative, biological, meaning it runs in her genes and it can be passed down through blood. Arcane means ancient. Merid means it's diverse. Creative, meaning thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Whatever you see in your mind's eye, you can create it. And some people are just able to manifest it quicker than others. And it runs through the blood. It's spiritual, meaning it's beyond what's observed with the five senses and cosmic power. And in the divine power, the planetary influence, the ebbs and flow, the correlation, and the knowledge of how plants, herbs, roots, animals, thought forms, places, things, times of days, similitude, and principles are put to use, because within all those things sits cosmic powers. There are certain few select people who have the ability to do that more than others. Keep in mind, you and I are all witches, but there are some people who just are naturally more aligned with it. There are different types now, which is what we went over. Before we continue, see, this respect and endearment part is where people have gotten it twisted. Here's a little thing that most so-called West African Babalawo will not want you to know. If you're from the Western world or other parts of the world, and you go into African spirituality and you travel, because most people want to travel to Africa, right? And that's good. But do know that there are energy vampires out there. When they go up there, they will tell them, well, you need to worship the Yamiaje because the witch is this and that. So now they turn these speculative Yamiaje into your God. When in truth, there's a divine creator that created even them. There's a divine power that existed before these so-called selected group of people on earth who have more clairvoyant and spiritual ability than the average man or woman existed. Everyone takes their power from somewhere. The source of the power that cannot be created or destroyed is the divine creator. See, the downside to the black and red witches is their ability to connect to that compared to the white ones are weaker. That's why they have to be energy vampires. But the thing is, their power lies on this earth because they have the ability to tap into other humans' spiritual being and eat off of it easier than a white witch would. In other words, a white witch or a white wizard don't care much for other humans are seeking from them, because that's not even what their specialty and their ability is. So they derive their ability from something greater to heal, to nurture, to protect, to bring about prosperity, to bring about clarity, and all what people perceive as good or positive attributes. Whereas the red and the black are rooted to the earth. So in African spirituality, you will hear them tell you, if you're really into it, you will probably run into someone telling you, well, within the mythos of Yoruba people, it's said that God had given the world to Yamiaje. What that means is not that they rule the world. What that means is that they have the ability to tap into other people's life force because that's their specialty. They are true, and when I say energy vampire, I'm not just talking about someone who wants to emotionally harm you to feel good or manipulate you because they're narcissists. See, that is an effect of something else that falls along the same line. And that's another way you quickly and easily know what type of witch a man or woman is. But that doesn't mean that they have the spiritual ability to actually go deep. Now, if you're weak enough spiritually, you would allow them to go that deep. See, most of these people that people worry about on the spiritual level are not that spiritually powerful. People only are just, they've slept in their own spiritual nature, so someone who is weaker than them can come and take from them. A bully would only bully someone if they know that you're weak and can fight back and kick their fucking ass. Most people who go to pastors, imams, this and that, most of those people are more spiritually inclined than their spiritual leaders. But because they've yet to actualize or realize that, or are not willing to just take that path themselves, someone else is taking advantage of them. Just like in a relationship. A man goes into a relationship, the woman manipulates her, screws his life up. The woman goes into a relationship, the man screws her mind up, screws her body up. Now she goes relationship after relationship and really can't fix it or get it right. Even when she thinks she's getting it right, she can't. Even when he thinks he's getting it right, he can't. Those small little similitude of people's personality attributes are semblance of something that exists on a spiritual level, because your emotions and your personality is just a lens and a mirror to what's going on in the spiritual realm and what type of spiritual attribute you have. Hence, the type of witch that you are. That's just the easiest pathway to know what type of witch a man or woman is. That is the reason why black and red witches are quick to want to act kind to you. Just want to give you something. Do you know that someone's fortune can be taken away from you just by someone saying they're giving gifts of some sort? You know how people do baby showers and people bring gifts? Do you know in West Africa people can give you gifts? And the longer you keep that gift around you, the more your good fortune will be taken away from you. Granted, there are other means to prevent that from happening, whereby certain things are put into automated response, whereby if certain negative attribute or malefic energy comes in, it neutralizes it or sends it back, because thoughts are elliptic in nature and they would always go back to their creator. So these things are not as speculative as you think. They're far more practical. In Yoruba language, Yami literally means my mother. In Yoruba cosmology, the mother's role as the force of creation and the sustainer of life and existence elevates her to the realm of the divine. The actual role of a woman being created onto this earth, it's like when you play some type of a game of some sort and you have certain characters who play certain roles, like say in football, American football, there are different positions because those are the attributes that they naturally have. Well, when we're born on this earth, when you speak of international football, they're defenders, they're strikers, they're midfielders, because they have certain attributes to put them in that position to play that position the best. When you play basketball, the forward, the shooting guards, etc., because they have certain attributes that makes them shine in that specific role, the purpose of the team. When it comes to human attributes of the law of gender, women are by default put into the category of divinity, at least in West African culture. The mother's role as the force of creation and the sustainer of life and existence elevates her to the realm of the divine. Now let's not get this twisted. Let's make this very, very clear. All women are not made equal. 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 So we're not here to rub honey and sugar in women. We're not here to say everyone should now just go ahead and worship women. Respect women, endear women, and know that there's a certain divine correlation to her. But just as a woman has a divine nature in her, know that all women are not created equal. Some women will come into your life to destroy your life. Some women will come into your life to uplift your life. Therein lies the category of the different types of witches. Consequently, Iyami with alteration of tones becomes Iyami or Iyami, because the Yoruba language is a tonal language, meaning you can, without the accent mark, you can write two words the same way and it would be pronounced differently. Unless someone naturally speaks the language, if you read it on a piece of paper, if you don't understand the tones that goes with it, you might misinterpret it, which can be translated as the super powerful ones, which is Yami, or my mysterious mother. Ade is a Yoruba word that signifies a biological and spiritual power of African women that has myriad potential, including but not limited to powers of elemental, biological, and artistic creation. This artistic creation has nothing to do with painting and all that cute stuff. Healing, destruction, spiritual and physical development, and fortification, and political organizations and empowerment. In other words, they just told you is above, so below. In the architecture of existence, which is the name of the book, in Yoruba cosmology, ontology, and overture, Teresa N. Washington defines Ade as a force that is beyond definition. But English approximation of Ade would be power, creation, cosmos, all. In other words, primary description and association of Ade begins with female, just as much as you would hear the word witches, which is in fact a feminine term. But do know that the equivalent version of this in men exists, and the respective derivatives of the three categories of white, black, and red also exist. Description. In Yoruba cosmology, the Orisha or Odu which, by the way, Odu is the wife of Oromila. Oromila is the one that used the system of divination of Ifa. Odu was his wife. And the different paths of Odu, from the 16, which is in a form of duality, 16 times 16, which is 256, and the subgroup of those 256 are named after his wife, and her name is Odu. In Yoruba cosmology, the Orisha Odu is the creator of the universe. She is the originator of existence and the womb of all origins. Yoruba spiritualist Samuel Okweola states that Aje actually is Odu. In other words, when you start to do divination and it starts to spit the different algorithm in form of Odu to you, you are doing witchcraft, is what they're saying. But then again, witchcraft is not spooky. Just remove all that fearful crap from your mind. Humans are more scarier than anything that you don't even see. You will see some humans walk around physically and they're screwed up. You look at some people and you will see horns coming out of their head. Have you ever seen that before? That's another story. So spirituality is not as spooky. And whoever wants to use spirituality as a form to scare you is trying to remove you from something you need to go to understand. Because when you understand that realm, no one can use it to scare you. The lack of knowledge is another reason why people get spiritually attacked. When you don't know something, you're afraid of it. When fear exists, your spiritual capacity is reduced. Your ability to use your spiritual ability is hindered. And that is where those who want to take advantage of you focuses on. Even in your everyday life, with any other simple situation, just think about it. People do that. If you don't know something, people will use that lack of information that exists in you to your advantage. Guess what? The same applies on a spiritual level. Spiritual gangsters and spiritual pimps are not just limited to someone taking your money and saying they're doing some spiritual work for you. Spiritual gangsters and spiritual pimps are those who would take from you spiritually. If you don't think that exists, think twice. But then there's a correspondent of those who wants to give and assist you. And Odu, by the way, was within the corpus and oral tradition of Yoruba. Odu was a white witch. African woman, the direct biological and spiritual progeny of Odu, meaning Odu is the mother of most women. And on the note of African women versus other type of women, look, let me tell you something. Women in general, regardless of what they look like, they all have spiritual abilities. No matter what your nationality is, no matter where you're from, everyone has spiritual capacity. How far it can reach and the density of it might differ, but nonetheless, everyone has spiritual capacity. So don't think this is just isolated to women of, quote, African descent. It's not. All women are witches, at least in my eyes. African women, the direct biological and spiritual progeny of Odu, are said to all inherently bear various aspects of her signature force, Aje. Aje is primarily associated with women because of their essential roles in conceiving, carrying, birthing, and nurturing children. However, African men, including African gods, can also have and be Aje. Okweola states that any Orisha regarded as essential in creation, childbirth, protection of a town also possesses the power of Aje, including Obatala, which is a masculine Orisha, Obaluayi, which is also a masculine Orisha that governs things like viruses, warfare, protection, and outbreaks of disease and things like that. Ogun being strictly for war, metallurgy, technology, etc., to name a few. So they're making reference to masculine Orishas that are nonetheless Ajes, just to clarify and take the point home that Ajay is not just limited to women, although it's primarily used to refer to women as a form of respect and endearment, as shown right here. It goes on to say, however, with its origin cosmically in Odu, which is a feminine entity, the womb of existence, and biologically in the menstruating, conceiving, birthing womb of existence, African women are the owners and controllers of Ajay. Because of its scope and power, Ajay is feared and revered by many. If something is powerful, why do you fear it? It's probably because you don't get it. And yeah, no one will fully comprehend everything that exists on earth, but why fear? Some individuals have attempted to demonize Ajay by translating the word as witch. But in 1958, article Uri Bayer disputed the translation. By the way, this is a man that traversed into West Africa and lived amongst them to learn about their culture and all that crap. Disputed this translation, saying that it was not an accurate translation of Ajay, since Ajay represents rather the mystical power of womanhood in their more dangerous, destructive aspect. Henry and Margaret Drewell wrote that any elderly woman, her longevity implying secret knowledge and power. Knowledge, very important aspect of anything you do. No matter how naturally inclined you are, no matter what role you naturally play, this right here is what makes all women not equal. The same applies with men. Secret knowledge and power, and this part with the secrets don't exist. Sacred information does, and you preserve the integrity of it because some people just don't know how to use things. Some people will bastardize information once it's revealed, so it has to be held sacred. But secrecy, it doesn't exist. That's a delusion. That's a lie. Secret knowledge and power may be regarded as an ajit, as are all who hold important titles in cults for the gods and ancestors. The feeling is that in order to fulfill her role properly, she must possess such power. It's all a role now. Which, by the way, if someone wants to tell you, well, because Ajay primarily refers to women, you must bow to women and all that. Let me tell you something, another sacred information that most won't tell you. When you have a role in this universe that divine creator gives or grants unto you, it's not by accident. With great power comes great responsibility. And if you don't play that role correctly, something else is tethered to you and created as a checks and balance system to make you fall, to kick your ass if you're not honorable with that power. And do you know what that is? That creation is the corresponding aspect to women called men. I'll say that and I'll leave it at that. The feeling is that in order to fulfill her role properly, she must possess such power. Using the term witch is especially dangerous because in many African communities, the accused can be ostracized or lynched because of false accusation. This is where ignorance also comes in, because despite the fact that dark and red witches outnumbers white witches, and they tend to be more brutal compared to white ones, not all witches are bad, is basically what they're saying. And because of the fact that people want to protect themselves because they know there are energy vampires out there. In Africa, they don't take a light. If you don't make it very clear what type of witch you are and what you do and what your intent is, you'll get it. So don't think because you learn about African spirituality, you're going to go to some other part of the world and declare yourself as a witch. Okay. Ayo, Adedunton's article. Calling Ajay witch in order to hang her. Yoruba patriarchal definition, a redefinition of female power. That's the name of this article. Analyzes the impact of the misuse of the term witch in Yoruba societies and the necessary usage of culturally appropriate and accurate Yoruba terms. In other words, if you don't know about the culture itself, the terminologies will not be used appropriately. And this is the reason why it's important to wage war on other cultures and use the virus of so-called being westernized to homogenize everything in other parts of the world, so that even the inhabitants, the natural progenitors of those cultures in other parts of the world will abandon their own cultures, while some very few will put the power to use and use some other trash as a virus to dominate other people. If you can get someone to voluntarily run away from their own culture, then it's checkmate. In some cases, to protect the bearers of power and to avoid confusion, terms such as elders of the night and Amoy Yawa may be used euphemistically. Meaning there's just a bunch of code word now just to protect the integrity of someone who might have a good intent among ignorant people. But my thing is, instead of using things euphemistically, clarify the difference to people so that you could kill ignorance. Ignorance is the reason why people do stupid things in today's world. But nonetheless, that's the basics of witches. For those looking into African spirituality or Yoruba spirituality, is there more to it? There's always more to it. But if you're being introduced to African spirituality and you're speaking about Orisha this, Orisha that, and you're not introduced to these basic things, and someone is telling you to go worship some Yami or tell you to go join some group because you think now that some Yami elders, this and that, are special, and you're carrying that around like the mantle of sovereignty over end all, meet all, okay, you better be careful. Something about you spiritually is being put to use by those telling you to go and join those things or feeding you those information without you comprehending that your own divinity is what you need to deal with first. Because even if when not psychics as in crystal balls and stuff, actual people who sit in this position and do something to you from long distance and it will touch you. When people like that work in those things, the first things they find out, see, they do their own divinations too, to find out, okay, is this man vulnerable for me to do something to him? Because believe it or not, witches are afraid too. Witches can get it too. If they turn towards someone who's the right person, they will get it also. Anyone can get it. And witches of all people, whether it be red, especially red or black, they know that too. So they have their own form of divination to see, okay, before I start doing this working as this man or woman, is this right or good? But nonetheless, if whoever's teaching you things about African spirituality is not giving you these basics, know that something valuable about you is being taken away from you, whether you realize it or not, whether you see the symptoms now or later in the future. Be very careful and know the truth about how things work. And know that the discernment between good or bad only has a very thin line between it. And nature does not care about what is good or bad. What matters is your ability to enforce what you know and your innate ability to be one with your heart and your divinity. And what most people try to make speculative is really not that speculative. It's far simpler, far functional, and far practical. In fact, you can walk out today and look at the way people behave and tell which category of witches they are, just merely by the way they behave, just merely by the essence that they exude, that they release, just merely by the way they treat fellow human beings. Whether they smile or they frown, matters not. Again, there's much, much more to this, because there's more than what meets the eyes. But no matter what it is, start with yourself first. Learn more about your order and take it from there. And you be good. The divine creator is always with you, everywhere and anywhere. And spirituality do exist in religious books. Everyone's path is just different. Find yours and put it to use. And don't just merely use spirituality as a trend and fashion. When you begin to use spirituality as a trend and fashion, people will take advantage of you. And know that spirituality is functional, and you have a very close grasp, access to it, more than anyone will tell you or want you to realize. You, your own self, are powerful. You, your own self, you are a witch. You, your own self, you are a wizard. Don't let anyone lie to you that a witch and a wizard is only what someone can be. Someone else outside of you can be. Don't let anyone deceive you to tell you that a witch and a wizard is something you ought to be afraid of. They ought to be afraid of you. If only you know what you're capable of. Are all women and men made equal? No, all men and women are not made equal. But you just might be that exception that's way greater and way more powerful than whoever it is that's trying to scare you about some witches, about something speculative, some spiritual stuff, some religious stuff. Look deep into yourself. Be honest with yourself. Be forthcoming with yourself.